guys, what's up? I'm Brian here doing another video for you guys, and this time I am defending Transformers The Last Knight. Now, I'm not going to say that it is the perfect toy line, but there's a lot of people who seem to be really upset with this toy line, and there's a couple of things that I want to defend upon it. Now, again, I'm not saying it's the best toy line. I'm not going to buy every single figure. I'm not interested in the Bumblebee and some of the other ones out there, but I feel like there is something to defend with this toy line, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about that. Anyways, so with that said, if you guys agree or disagree with me, that's fine. Comment below. We can all be civil about this, but let's go ahead and talk about the defense for Transformers The Last Knight. And the main thing that people are really upset by is repaints. A lot of the figures are repaints, and I will say some of the repaints work, some of the repaints don't really work, and some of the repaints are kind of meh. Like the Bumblebee I don't think really works, and then some of the other Dinobots are just kind of bland, but it makes sense considering that they had a bland color scheme in the movie. They had accents of purple and red and whatnot, but for the majority of them, they were mostly gray with maybe some green accents being blended into it. And that was primarily their color scheme. Thus why the Grimlock now contains a very gray color scheme compared to his original version. And the good part about this is now you have a difference between both versions. And with Age of Extinction, the reason why they decided to make them all different colors was so that you can definitely depict which one is which character, because to a lot of parents they all look the same. It's like you get one, you pretty much have all of them. But if they were all different colors, then that really shows that they are all different characters. So that's pretty much the main reason why they're all different colors and very bright at that. But for Transformers The Last Knight, now you're reusing those characters, they might as well just reuse them in the gray paint scheme, and that's what they decide to do. And that's why Grimlock is this gray color scheme. Strafe has a tint of blue, but mostly gray. Slug has this gold, but mostly gray. Scorn still has a lot of red, though. I will say that. But at least they made a new Scorn, so that's good. Anyways. So people are complaining on the fact that a lot of the other figures are repaints too. Like, it's not just the Dinobots, a lot of the Autobots are also repaints. Crosshairs is a remold of himself. He does share a lot of the original mold, but he does have some differences. Drift probably has the most differences compared to Crosshairs. I mean, pretty much the whole alt mode is reversed, but internally it is mostly the same toy. And as well as that, we also have the same Optimus Prime coming back in the same toy line. So you do have a lot of repaints, but what I want to defend is that you also have a lot of new molds that I don't think a lot of people seem to really notice when they make this argument. You have Megatron, which gets 2 new molds. Steelbane, which has 2 versions. You actually have the Steelbane and then the Skeletron. It was announced that we are going to get a Voyager, not Voyager, but a Leader class version of Dragonus, and I imagine the Voyager class version of Bumblebee is going to be a new mold. You've got another Bumblebee that's going to be a completely new mold. You've got, again, Crosshairs and Drift has some remolds to them. Squeaks is going to be a new mold. Barricade's going to be a new mold. Berserker's going to be a new mold. You do have new molds. Hound and Scorn, they're all new molds. And I don't think a lot of people seem to have focused on that. And we are even getting Toys R Us exclusive toys that seem to be new molds. Nitro is a brand new mold. Now, you can argue that that might not be a Toys R Us exclusive toy, but if it is, then that's pretty good. So with that said, you're getting a lot of new molds with it. But you're going to say, yeah, we're going to get some new molds, but there's not a lot of them compared to Revenge of the Fallen. Well, here's the thing about Revenge of the Fallen and the first movie, is that those toy lines came out around when the movie lineup itself was brand new. It was a big deal. It was a huge thing. And so they decided to make a lot of characters and a lot of toys. Some characters that weren't even in the movie, like Stockade, Incinerator, and whatnot, were characters that were never actually seen in the movie, but they decided to make more toys to expand off this bigger universe. And with the fact that they had sequels, means that it was going to continuously be a big deal with Revenge of the Fallen and Dark of the Moon. And so they continued making these great new figures for the toy line. But you also have to remember, by Dark of the Moon, they canceled a lot of the figures. And why is that? Because a lot of them were new characters like Darksteel and whatnot, but the movieverse didn't feel relevant anymore. It felt like it was dying and it was moving on because we didn't know exactly what was going on with Age of Extinction. And I think Hasbro knew that it was going to die down because they weren't even sure if the Age of Extinction was going to be a thing, and they wanted to move on to the next step, which is Transformers Prime. At least I believe Transformers Prime came around that time. But they still wanted to move on from that. So they discontinued Dark of the Moon, and that's why you have a lot of canceled figures like Leadfoot, and apparently there was going to be a leader class version of the Megatron, and so on and so forth. But you also have to understand, this is the second movie with these kind of aesthetics, so it does stand to reason that a lot of these characters are coming back from the original movie. It does stand to reason why a lot of them are repaints, because they are pretty much the same figure. Now, you can argue that for Revenge of the Fallen, when that came out, they brought out a whole new setup of molds. With the Optimus Prime, the Bumblebee, I believe, was a remold. I don't know. I don't have any of the first movie Bumblebees except for the very first one, which is the old style Camaro. And you had a new version of Starscream, and you had a new version of Megatron. But what I think a lot of people are forgetting is that you had a lot of repaints too. Ratchet was a straight up repaint. Grindor was a straight up repaint of Blackout. Ironhide, for the majority, had 2 repaints during Revenge of the Fallen and another one during Hunt for the Decepticons in a 2-pack. And in that 2-pack, you had Bone Crusher, a repaint from the first movie lineup. You also had a repaint from the Brawl figure. You had, I believe, a repaint from the Jazz, but I could be wrong. Eventually you did with Dark of the Moon, at least. So you still had a bunch of repaints from characters that were being brought up from the first movie over to the second. But because they also tried to expand the universe of the movie lineup, you had a lot of new molds to fill in the gap. And I think what Age of Extinction tried to do was they didn't want to make the movie Toyline a big deal. They wanted to make it a big deal at the time, but they also made it so that they can move on to the next series with Robots in Disguise and whatnot. Because they didn't want to do the same thing that they did with Dark of the Moon and cancel so many figures. I mean, the deluxe lineup had 3 or 4 waves of figures if you count the lockdown. The Voyager class figures had 3 waves, and that was pretty much it. And none of them were canceled. They all got a release eventually. So, I think the major thing is that with The Last Night, they're reusing a lot of the same characters because, well, in the movie, they are the same characters. And then with that said, they are not completely expanding the universe like Revenge of the Fallen did in the first movie. And so you're not going to get a whole lot of new characters. You are still going to get a whole lot of new characters that aren't in the movies themselves, but not as much as Revenge of the Fallen or the first movie. Which it does actually make sense, especially after what happened with Dark of the Moon. And The Last Night is repeating what Age of Extinction did, so that eventually they can move on from that. Again, I'm not saying that The Last Night is a good toy line, I'm not saying they're making the right choices or anything like that. But I see a lot of people who are not defending this toy line, and I just wanted to give my say because I think there is some stuff that needs defending. I constantly hear that Hasbro is just stupid and idiots and whatnot. What the hell are they doing? And sometimes I do agree with that. Like, again, with the deluxe class Bumblebee for the first wave of Transformers The Last Night, I'm thinking, what the hell's with that? But, for a lot of it, it does make sense. A lot of it, there is reasons to this and that. I'm not going to say it's perfect. And again, this video is to defend what Hasbro is doing, not necessarily to say the negative. Now, you could say that's kind of hypocritical, or, you know, that's kind of wrong because you're not really talking about what is wrong about the toy line. But again, This video is just to defend it. I could say so many things that are wrong with the Toyline. Again, with the Bumblebee, I'm not a big fan of the fact that they just reused the same Bumblebee. But, again, I don't see a lot of people who see the defense of it. And I just wanted to give my say. If you disagree with me, that's fine. If you agree with me, that's fine. Please be civil about it. But that's just my argument on the table. So with that said, I thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, and all those fun doodads. Please comment below so that we can continue this discussion. And I'll see you guys next time.